Okay, so we're going through and looking at examples row by row of sustained investigations. This is a drawing sustained investigation, remembering that row A is about inquiry, and it is the same for both 2D and drawing. So either class, you can still get ideas and inspiration from this example. So to get started, let's look at the written evidence. Remembering this paragraph, this is the 1,200 words that you'll write closer to the end of the course, talking about your body of work. So during this class, I have been exploring Japanese culture through the blend of traditional and modern influences in everyday life. My investigation has revolved around the development of my subject matter, influences, and inspiration. I began my sustained investigation focusing on modern and traditional fashion, and I plan to illustrate connections between kimono styles and both modest, flamboyant modern clothing. While studying this, my attention shifted to environments and scenery within Japanese culture. I have drawn on my personal experiences while living in Japan, as well as nature, art, and style, to investigate my guiding question. Many of the subjects of my studies are commonplace scenes or items found in Japan. My investigation is inspired regularly by slice of life illustrations. I like to illustrate nature, daily commutes, and stray cats, which have been a regular sight throughout my time in Japan. Having focused on my subject matter, I experimented with mediums this year, using digital painting, inks, and watercolors to convey my concept. Color also has a very central role in my work. I have refined my use of color to create harmony and atmosphere in my body of work. So let's look at examples. So this is image 1, materials, watercolor, micron pens, graphite pencil, processes investigating tourism in Japan, crowded subways, sightseeing, and foreign fashion. So remember, we're looking for connections. I'm going to scroll down and read that part of the rubric to you really quickly. So we're looking at this row A. We are looking for written evidence identifies an inquiry that guides the sustained investigation. So that can be that first paragraph of written evidence. We can also see it some in those shorter writings about each image. And the visual evidence demonstrates the sustained investigation. So we're looking for this connection between what you wrote and the work that you made. So this is an example of a process image looking in their sketchbook of what the student is exploring and working through. Image 2 is another sketchbook spread. Materials are the same, process, manipulation, and integration of nature in scenes of everyday life in Japan. So you can see they are researching, they're collecting information that does connect back to their sustained investigation. So the work that they're doing in their sketchbook is guided by their inquiry. Another sketchbook spread. Studies of indigo and Japanese fashion and art, patterns and illustration. So seeing here in their process, they're really helping us see, they're telling us what they were studying. So they're not telling us things like drew a woman and then drew another woman. They're telling us what were they actually trying to learn. So taking the inquiry, and that makes it easier to see how this is guiding the work. Another sketchbook spread. Process incorporating sumi-e techniques into my study of modern Japanese culture. So that's a connection between techniques and the overall inquiry that we're seeing. Another sketchbook spread. Sand gardens inspired by ripples, memories of Japanese street food, and traveling. Another sketchbook spread. Investigating the strong presence of nature in everyday life, studies of fashionable youth. Process is practicing line art and style, expressive movement, and emphasis through line weight. So really highlighting what 2D, what drawing skills are they using. And so now we see we're moving kind of out of a sketchbook spread into a more finished piece. Concepts for future paintings, scenes of spring and summer. So it's still process, but it's changing a little bit how they're presenting it to us. It looks a little bit more finalized. Back to a sketchbook spread. Street scenes from festivals and daily life, noticing the colors, red and pink. Process investigating the intersection of tradition and modern influences in Japanese fashion. Playing with fluidity and texture in canvas, illustrating different subjects, food and fashion. Sketching ideas for future works, practicing expressions and chibi characters. The Okanai culture studies ideas for further investigations and processes of digital painting. Here we have a finished piece, experimenting with mark making or digital or printed digital work. And image 15, we have another process image. So you can see this student used a lot of process images. So one thing I really want you to remember as we're looking through this and looking at the scores, we are only looking at the score for how the student scored in row A. Each row of the rubric is scored independently to bring the whole thing together. So they could potentially have scored overall still very high because they're within their sketchbook, they are showing drawing skills. They do have finalized things, but I normally would recommend that you have more than one finished piece to really help solidify that last row, that row D. So let's look at why they scored a 3 on row A. In this portfolio, the written evidence distinctly identifies an inquiry that guides the sustained investigation. Initially, the intent was to illustrate connections between kimono styles and both modest, flamboyant, modern clothing. However, as the investigation progressed, the objective grew to encompass environments and scenery within Japanese culture. While some of the imagery may seem disparate, all the works do indeed investigate personal experiences while living in Japan. Throughout the portfolio, traditional and modern fashion depictions remain a predominant focus as seen in the intricate detailing of clothing in image 1, 5, 6, and 9. This portfolio shows continued engagement with the inquiry. Written evidence on several images indicates exploring ideas for future works or further investigations. The written statement that color exploration is a very central role in my work is evident in many images, 5, 6, 9, 13, 14, and 15.